Hello, and welcome to PhD Mystified, the podcast for current and aspiring doctoral students. We're here to help make your doctoral journey a little bit more enjoyable.
Our goal is to eliminate the dark corners of the academy, discuss some of the unwritten rules, break through some of the confusion, and offer some guidance based on our own experiences.
I'm Dr. Julianne Burgess, adjunct professor at Brock University.
And I am William Ankoma, assistant professor of education at St. Francis Xavier University. We are diverse folks with diverse perspectives, and we are also recent grads. Today, we are delighted to discuss a really spicy topic.
Spicy.
Switching your supervisor. Your university will likely tell you, in fact, your friends may also tell you that this is a very rare situation. We are not so sure about that. Why? Because we both switched supervisors under very different circumstances, though.
That's right. And I think that the universities are trying to make this a rare occurrence. However, in our experience, it's not that rare. Now, we covered in episode 8, the doctoral student works directly with their supervisor. Like in a mentor-mentee relationship, things may not always go as expected. And you need to remember there is always a power dynamic at play, and it's not always visible. There is hierarchy, there are expectations, rules, do's and don'ts that you may not be aware of, but you need to be. So let's jump in here and explore this topic. Let's get spicy.
Mhm.
So, in your opinion, Dr. Will, what are the characteristics of a good supervisor?
For me, I think first and foremost, the supervisor must be approachable. And what do I mean by that?
Mhm.
You know, you need a mentor who is open and welcoming, warm and ready to receive you and your issues,
Mhm.
your happiness, frustrations, whatever. They, this person should be there to really support you. They are there with you, and you are not scared to reach out. I mean, you are not scared to reach out for guidance and assistance.
That's very interesting because I think that that's absolutely true. If you feel intimidated,
Mhm.
that might be a red flag that
Right.
this person isn't approachable.
Right.
For me, your supervisor should get back to you in a reasonable time frame. I was very lucky with my two supervisors. They got back to me within days. I was not expecting to hear from them when I turned in a paper or asked a question. I wasn't expecting to hear for a week, maybe 2 weeks. But I was very fortunate. They provided excellent, detailed feedback when I needed it. I was offered research opportunities by both of my supervisors. I had writing opportunities, and I was asked to assist with editing one supervisor's volume and contributing a chapter. They pushed me to consider new theories, new methodologies. When the pandemic hit and my research plan had to change, my supervisor was extremely supportive and very open to moving my research online. I think you had the same experience
Right.
where we were both surprised by, the pandemic hitting right at this crucial time. And I found that my supervisors were enthusiastic about my work, and I felt very well supported. So I want to say I realize that in my situation, I was very, very fortunate, and not everyone has this experience, but I felt that it was the way it should be. So, what does a good supervisor provide?
Right. So, to add to what you already said, my first supervisor also gave me lots of opportunities. We did a lot of work together. We sat on committees. I remember working on a teaching Nelson Mandela project with her. We did work for the faculty. Yeah, it's just things didn't go as expected later. So I switched and then had a second supervisor who also really came, with a speed of light and helped me through the program. So time is so important because you're paying.
Mm-hmm.
Even if your program is funded, if you are fully funded, you're still paying tuition from those funds. So if you can finish, you can get their feedback on time. And that pushes me to, talk about a good supervisor will give you constructive, not destructive feedback. And by constructive feedback, we're saying that what you get from them challenges you to see what you didn't initially see. They critique your work to make it stronger and motivates you to keep going. On the other hand, if it's a destructive feedback, in fact, it rubbishes everything you spent sleepless nights to compose.
Mm-hmm.
And that drains the energy out of you.
Right. Your supervisor's responsibility is to ensure that you have a thorough grounding in your field of study. They should be introducing you to theories, to concepts, methodologies that are going to stretch you and your thinking and ultimately improve your work.
And they provide you opportunities, as Dr. J already said, for research, for co authoring, presenting at conferences and other academic endeavors, like writing grant proposals and working on other projects.
Right. We discussed your supervisor's advisor card in episode 6. So, this is your advisor's social capital, their connections. They should be using their capital to help you to advance your progress. Now, we also talked about signing a contract with your supervisor to
Right.
clearly lay out expectations. And if you think that maybe your relationship with your advisor needs a bit more clarity, perhaps it's around issues like response times, that you're waiting a long time to hear
Mm-hmm.
back from them.
Mm-hmm.
You need perhaps a little more clarity, and it might be difficult to broach the subject of signing a contract, but take a look at there are some examples online at the UBC, at the University of Saskatchewan. Just taking a look at the University of Colorado, their contract states the advisor's
Mm-hmm.
responsibility, I will not require the graduate student to perform tasks that are unrelated to his or her training program and professional development. So if you're in a situation where you're being asked to take on all kinds of things and you're thinking, how do I say no to my supervisor? Well, signing a contract might be a good idea as it outlines that the rules and responsibilities for both the advisor and the students, and you're both agreeing to them. So check that out. That might be a worthwhile endeavor for you.
Yeah, and by UBC, we mean the University of British Columbia.
Right.
And also to add to these excellent points you've already said, Dr. J, I think it is the responsibility of doctoral programs to have these contracts ready.
In place.
It should not be incumbent on the doctoral student to push for this
Hmm.
because wherever there are relationships, we know they could be great and they could turn sour too.
Hmm. And there's always a power dynamic at play, whether
Oh,
you see it or not. So let's talk about the kinds of things
yeah.
that would make someone
Mm-hmm.
consider changing their supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
So, YouTuber Andy Stapleton, who's a science guy, has put together a good list of scenarios where you might think about changing your supervisor. And just keep in mind that in order to consider changing, you need to be encountering recurring situations
Right.
that are not improving over time and that you have made an attempt to address but haven't been successful.
Mm-hmm. And it's possible or likely that you have changed direction. Some of the reasons why you may consider changing a
Mhm.
supervisor. You've changed direction. You're no longer interested in the research topic you had, and you came in thinking that's what you were going to do, hence the supervisor. But here you are, no, I don't want it anymore. But this supervisor does not have the expertise
Mhm.
to guide you through. So you have that respectful, conversation. You make the switch. It could also be your supervisor also changing direction.
That's
All
another
right, that they're
possibility.
no longer interested in, what they're actually pursuing. Their research focus is shifted, and they don't want to have anything to do with it again.
And in my situation, I probably changed topics half a
Me
dozen
too.
times
Me
from the
too.
time that of my first research proposal with my application.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean you need to change supervisors.
Yes.
You'll be having this ongoing dialogue
Yeah.
with your supervisor about the
Mhm.
topic that you ultimately land
Mhm.
on. So if it's within the scope of
Mhm.
your supervisor's expertise, you're staying with that supervisor. There's no reason to switch.
And your committee members come with, the expertise. Some of them will come with the expertise that your supervisor does not have,
Hmm.
right? I had two fantastic committee members who were experts on the field regarding the topic I researched on. Okay. Another reason that could get a doctoral student, thinking about changing their supervisor is, academics are really ambitious people, and they are always looking for other opportunities and the chance to move to another university. Or sometimes, people get sick also. Sometimes they retire. Then you will definitely need a supervisor.
And you won't have a choice. It
Yeah.
just happens.
Yeah.
Something else to be concerned about is extreme favoritism.
Mm.
Your supervisor may be mentoring another student and giving that student opportunities that you're not getting. And when you ask, you still don't get those opportunities. So that's very frustrating because, of course, you want to enrich your CV and your professional life. So if you're not getting good opportunities, if there's a lack of support for your development as a scholar, you need to seriously think about whether this is worth staying with this supervisor.
All right. We all know about siblings, rivalry, and all
Yeah.
those things. Yeah. So if your colleagues are getting other opportunities and you're not getting, then it hurts,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Another important issue here is monetary, financial. Your supervisor is supposed to be paying you for work you've done with them and for them. But over a number of months, you're working for free. It feels like they have no intention of paying you. And when you ask, what do they say? They keep telling you stories. But you also have financial obligations, right? That you
Absolutely.
must take care of. That's not a healthy
So
situation.
you're not getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about if your supervisor is MIA, missing in action? You have no communication. They are not answering emails. You can't get a hold of them. You're waiting. You're waiting. You feel lost. You can't move on. You need their advice, and they're nowhere to be found. Well, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, what else?
Yeah. And in fact, there could be a toxic situation, really working on and learning in a toxic environment. Could be at the lab, with your colleagues, when your supervisor is with their colleagues in the department, wherever, or with you personally. The way they communicate with you, if it's disrespectful, you see them talking down upon you, embarrassing you, they're simply abusing their power,
Hmm.
right? And you know that already there is a power imbalance in your relationship. But your supervisor has an obligation to maintain a professional relationship with you, and they're abusing it. So, do you feel you are able to talk to them about this? If you can, yes, that's the way it should be. But if you cannot, then you need to start thinking about your next steps.
Hmm.
So, your advisor is really key to your future. It's not a joke in the doctoral program. It's you and your advisor. They need to help you to finish your degree and help you with your career. But if that relationship is broken, then, my friends, you need to do something about it.
Right. And just similar to what you're talking about, personality clashes. It's
Mhm.
not really that uncommon. And this is when things can get pretty spicy. On his YouTube channel, Dr. Andy Stapleton describes the personality clash he experienced with his advisor. The way he describes it is that I was the brunt of her academic frustration. I was at risk of not finishing. So, what did he do? Well, first of all, he had a meeting with the dean and the suggestion was to take on another primary advisor, and his first supervisor became his co supervisor. And that for him worked very well. It improved their relationship and it allowed him to finish. So it's good to know that there are steps you can take. You do not need to change supervisors.
Mhm.
Relationships can improve by tinkering with the mix.
Yes.
And I would think that Andy, in his situation, was very lucky
Yes, he
that
was.
the co-supervisor arrangement may not work in every situation, right?
That is very true. There are some instances there's no way you want to put two different people together. Co-supervision should begin, right from the scratch, not midway through. But in instances like Stapleton's one, it worked. So
Hmm.
yeah. So Dr. J, if a doctoral student is sure they've decided to absolutely change their supervisors, what should they do? What's the next step?
Well, you may not realize it, but of course, there is a process to follow. Every university will have a
Mhm.
process to follow. What you need to do to find out that process is look at your handbook, your program handbook.
Mhm.
There should be a description in there. In other words, don't go it alone. You do not have to go it
Mhm.
alone.
Mhm.
And one thing you should not do is go shopping for a new supervisor on your own. That will not be appreciated.
It's not respectful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So once you look at your program's handbook, you will definitely see that they're asking you to talk to your supervisor. And maybe you cannot do that because there is power imbalance, right, between you, the student, and your advisor. And if it's a personality clash, a toxic relationship, it's highly impossible to have a discussion with your supervisor when you decide to sever ties.
So then what do? You read your handbook. Then we would suggest that you confidentially approach someone, the dean, associate dean, chair of grad studies, the program director. Go to them for advice. You don't necessarily need to say, I need to switch.
Mm-hmm.
You should say, I need some advice.
Yes.
You need to explain to them what's been happening, and they should work with you to resolve the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there is a conflict resolution
Mm-hmm.
process. Maybe they can facilitate your move to perhaps another faculty, another institution, another supervisor within your faculty. It is complicated.
It is.
There is a lot that goes on behind the scenes, as you
Mm-hmm.
can imagine. There is paperwork. What will also happen is if you're being assisted to move on, your committee members will need to be informed.
Mm-hmm.
Administration will need to be informed. As I say, paperwork will
Mm-hmm.
need to be completed. And this stuff doesn't involve you, shouldn't really involve you. You should just be informed when the process is all done. Um, as I say, the important point here is do not try to do this on your own.
Exactly. Um, our experiences.
So we both switched supervisors. It was, unexpected.
Unexpected,
Yep.
yeah. Um,
So what happened with you?
so mine, there was conflict and confusion, and it got to a time that I knew it was time to move on. So I first looked at the program's handbook, but I had very little information and a cumbersome process as well.
Hmm.
Uh, and the process was, as I said, really arduous, and I wasn't sure whether to proceed at all, although I knew I had to move on. However, I turned to Dr. Google and read a lot about why and how someone would change their supervisor. Then, armed with all this insight, I reached out directly to the program's director. And they understood the power dynamics very well, between supervisors and students. So I made a suggestion for a new supervisor. And I must say that I really appreciated how the programs director used. They are good offices. This is Ghanaian expression.
And
They're
what does it
good
mean?
offices. Yeah, that's the quality leadership skills they had, man management, human management, let me put it that way,
Hmm.
not man management, human management, to handle the switch amicably. I didn't have to meet with anyone beside the programs director. And within a few weeks, I got a letter saying the change was officially done.
So that was a relief, a weight
Was
off your
was
shoulders.
was a relief, yes.
Well, in my case, I changed supervisors, and in my situation, my supervisor took a position at another university in another country.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, when she told me about it, she let me know she wasn't taking me with her. I wasn't far enough along. This was just the end of or early in my second year, I think.
Right.
Now, before she told me this, before she broke the news, she had already handpicked a new supervisor for
Mm-hmm.
me, someone who I had already worked with, who was a previous instructor, whose work and personality and professionalism I really admired.
Yes.
So I was fine making this switch. I admit it was a shock. It
Yes.
happened quickly. It basically, the analogy I could use is it was like they were passing the baton and I was kind of running, trying to catch up as I didn't know what was going on and how this was all going to unfold. It worked very well. And after getting over the initial shock, my first supervisor stayed on as an additional committee member, and that provided continuity, and
Yes.
there was no trouble within the faculty
Mm-hmm.
doing that. Again, there was paperwork to submit to approve the addition of another committee member.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, in the end, I was very, very fortunate to have had two great supervisors.
That's fantastic.
It worked well in my
Yes.
case. Yeah,
So one final piece of advice to consider, my friends, is don't burn bridges.
this is
Whether
important.
yes, whether there was confusion or whatever, please don't burn bridges. Yes, we get it. Your own well-being and health are, the most important. But if you really need to burn bridges to for your own sake, absolutely, we won't say don't do it.
So
But
if you need to sever ties,
yes,
you sever those
you
ties.
sever
If
those
that's
ties.
for your own well-being, that's what you have to do.
Right. But you need to understand that whatever happens, remember to communicate respectfully and professionally throughout this process, as I have always done and will continue to do. I have always acknowledged and appreciated my first supervisor's contribution to my development in the program and my professional life in general.
It doesn't seem when you're in the
Mhm.
midst of
The
a
heat,
crisis like
yeah.
this, you can't imagine how it's possible that things could work out.
Hmm.
However,
Hmm.
I think we've both experienced this in different ways.
Hmm.
You never know what tomorrow may bring
Hmm.
and how this person may come back into your life, and it can happen in unexpected and positive
A
ways.
very positive way.
So
Hmm.
don't burn bridges.
Yes. So yeah, in my case, not long after the switch, I had an opportunity to talk with my former supervisor to reconcile and to work with them again. And I continued to work with my former supervisor, the first one, and we have a good, working relationship. We have worked on a project for the entire institution. She invited me. In fact, there was a time that when I completed the program, I didn't have a job at all. Out of the blue, she reached out and said, "Hey, I got this research associate position. Would you be interested?" I had no job. I jumped on it and we worked happily. We got a good technical report done for the university as a whole. So, yeah, don't burn bridges. Yeah.
Mhm. Important. And honestly, that is an amazing end to
Mhm.
that story. And it's inspiring. So if you need to switch supervisors,
Mhm.
if it's thrust upon you, you don't have a choice,
Mhm.
make the most of it. Your supervisor may turn out to be a gift to you in ways that
Yes.
you can't imagine.
Yeah. The same person that sever ties may be a gift
That's right.
later. So, well, that's it for us today.
Again.
Yes. You've been listening to PhD Mystified. Thanks for joining us. I am Dr. William Ankoma.
And I'm Dr. Julianne Burgess. We would love to hear from you. So please send us a note, email us at phdemystified@gmail.com, and we'll chat with you again in a couple of weeks.
Thank you,
Thanks so much, and
and
bye
take
for
care.
now.
Thank you for listening to PhD Mystified. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to stay updated on new releases. We love to hear from our listeners, so please reach out to us at phdemystified@gmail.com if you'd like to get in touch. This podcast is hosted and produced by Julianne Burgess, PhD, and William Ankuma, PhD, in collaboration with Brock University's Makerspace Studio. Co-produced and edited by Serena Atella. Music is High on Loungin' by Wax Lyricist. This podcast is financially supported by St. Francis Xavier University.